Hi, I'm Chief Meteorologist Kurt Aaron. Hope you had a wonderful Memorial weekend, and we do hope that you took a minute out to at least honor those that made the ultimate sacrifice, because rain or shine, we need to do that for those that paid so much for us. Now, we are still in the month of May, believe it or not. It's coming to an end, but May is typically the month where we see any type of weather, all 4 seasons. We can also see overnights, the weather beginning to stabilize. And overnights is where we're going to start with our very own Jeremy Luan, who's talking about the blue moon this month.
A blue moon is slated to light up the last night of May. On May 31st at 9:22 p.m., look toward the southeast to catch it rise above the horizon. Now, before you get too excited, it won't actually look blue. The name is a bit misleading. A blue moon is simply the second full moon in a single month. Most months only have one full moon, but because the lunar cycle is about 29.5 days long, every once in a while the timing lines up just right. This month we had a full moon on May 1st. If a full moon happens early in the month, as it did this month, there's enough room for a second one before the month is over. It's more likely to occur, of course, when a month has 31 days, like May, rather than a month that has 30 days. It's something that doesn't happen often. In fact, blue moons only come around on average about every 2 to 3 years. That rarity is where the phrase "once in a blue moon" comes from, used to describe something that doesn't happen very often. Now, the moon can appear blue, lavender, or even green if there are large amounts of wildfire smoke, volcanic ash, or ice crystals present in the sky. While this one won't be a different color, it is a little extra special, and the best part, you don't need a telescope or any special gear to enjoy it. If the weather cooperates, just head outside, look up, and take in a small but uncommon moment in the night sky. Jeremy Luan, Newswatch 16.
Thanks, Jeremy. Great stuff. You know, the month of May has been a little fickle for us in northeastern and central Pennsylvania. Allie Gallo has the recap of just how crazy it has been. And before we get to her, let me ask you, is there any one weather event that sticks out in your mind for the month of May? I have multiple ones. It's called Rain Every Saturday. Check it out. Here's Allie.
This month we had record-breaking heat with afternoon high temperatures in the 90s and overnight low temperatures below freezing, meaning a late season hard freeze across northeastern and central Pennsylvania. This week we're taking a look back at the weather for the month of May. May started out on the chilly side with below average afternoon highs in the 50s and 60s almost every single day. By the middle of the month, it looked like this year's May was going to be one of the coolest ever on record. But then we finally broke out of that pattern, and we broke out of it in a big way. The hottest day of the month in Williamsport was on Monday, May 18th, when it hit 94 degrees, 1 degree shy of a record. Then it hit 90 again the next day on the 19th in central PA. In Scranton, it was 91 degrees both May 18th and May 19th, which were the hottest temperatures recorded for the month. In Mount Pocono, it was 88 degrees on May 18th, which broke the previous record of 87 set in 1962. Those 90-degree temperatures came less than a week after some frosty mornings. It dropped to 32 degrees on May 12th in both Scranton and Williamsport, one of the latest freezes we've ever seen here in northeastern and central PA.
Mother Nature is the one that wins. We take what she gives us.
Newswatch 16 stopped by Lucas Farms in Hanover Township and Shikshini this month. Owner John Lucas told us who was impacted most by a late season freeze like the one we had this year.
Unfortunately, the fruit growers really had it hard with that freeze. I don't think there's going to be much, if any, local fruit. As far as the vegetables, I think they'll be good. They're just going to be a little later. And the cost, unfortunately, is probably going to have to go up a little.
We will end the month of May with above average rainfall for the Scranton area, but not by much and nowhere near the amount of rain we received last May. The night of May 13th, a severe thunderstorm moved through the Scranton area and dumped close to 1.5 inches of rain. That was the rainiest day of the month. In Williamsport, the rainiest day of the month was Saturday, May 23rd. The Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, when 1.2 inches of rain fell. And speaking of Memorial Day weekend, the weather was a pretty big topic for the holiday weekend that usually marks the unofficial start to summer. The high temperature on Saturday the 23rd was 56 degrees, one of the coldest high temperatures ever recorded for that date. It was only ever colder twice since record keeping began more than 100 years ago. And that temperature happened just after midnight. It was actually only in the 40s during the daytime hours that day. It wasn't only cold, but it rained pretty much the entire day too. The Scranton area received about 3/4 of an inch of rain, but many places recorded more than an inch, making it one of the rainiest May 23rds ever on record. The rain did not stop the beloved Memorial Day weekend tradition in Jessup. Thousands of people still showed up for the Race of the Saints.
So this is our 150th year here doing this in the U.S., and rain or shine, it doesn't matter. This race will run no matter what.
It got a little bit warmer and a little bit drier the next day on Sunday, May 24th. But then one more round of rain moved in early Memorial Day morning. The runners here at the annual Memorial Day Dalton Dash didn't seem to mind. The 5-mile race through the borough benefits the Dalton Community and Commerce Association. Money raised goes towards beautifying Dalton's downtown.
Well, I've been told that runners like to run in the rain and the cold, so while it's not ideal, they're still happy to be out. Memorial Day is like the beginning of our season, so it's great to see people come out, the runners come out, people stay to cheer them on.
Later on Memorial Day morning, the rain stopped, and by the afternoon, the sun even came out, making for a nearly perfect late May afternoon and evening with the return of seasonal temperatures in the 70s. Experts say wildfire activity has hit historic levels this spring and will likely worsen in the coming months. Next week, we'll take a look at the incredible images from 3 years ago when the wildfire smoke from Canada impacted us here in northeastern and central Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me this week. I'm Allie Gallo.
Thanks, Allie. Interesting month. The month of May certainly is. Now, as we get closer to summer, things really start to heat up. And speaking of heating up, that impacts our pets. And coming up a little bit later on, we're going to have another podcast report. And I think you're going to want to pay attention because some people don't realize just how critical it can be for our pets in the summertime. But coming up next, though, Joe Snedeker is talking about the humidity and how heavy it can be, as I like to say, air you can wear. Joe's coming up in just a minute. Hi, welcome back to Cloud to Ground. I'm Chief Meteorologist Kurt Aaron. Question was asked to us, how can humid air be light but also heavy at the same time? That's a great question from a viewer, and I know just the man to answer it. Joe Snedeker. Take it away, Joe.
Hi folks, and welcome to the lightning round where we answer your questions. I got a good one here from Vicky from Factoryville. Hey Joe, thanks for your discussion on humidity a few weeks ago. Remember we had Mindy in here? Good stuff, right? Well, now that we start getting into the hot, humid season, she said, I'm wondering why humidity actually makes you feel sluggish and weak and heavy, like the air is all over you. It's getting lighter, like you said, it should be easier on the body. So look who's here to help me out. I got the great John Meyer. So you have to admit, and when it gets humid out, you just feel like, ugh.
It feels like it's weighing down on you.
But yet, dry air is heavy and humid air is light.
So you just think it'd be the opposite.
You think it would be the opposite. So let's find out what's happening. I have water in this cup. I'm going to put water on the desk, and I'm going to ask everyone, what will it take to evaporate that water on the desk? What does it take to make that go away?
Well, it's going to take some warmth.
Yeah, so if you apply heat to that, the energy is used up in making that water evaporate. So you need heat to make that evaporate. All right, get that in your head.
Okay.
And now I want you to stick your finger in the water.
Okay.
Or we could do this, but we're too classy, look. And then blow on it.
Mine's already wet.
All right, how does it feel?
Cool.
Cool. All right, so think about this. Why does the water on your finger make your finger feel cool? When you blow on it, you're applying heat energy from your mouth. That makes the water evaporate, and it takes the heat from where?
From
your finger. Remember, to make water evaporate, you need heat. So when you put water on your finger, it takes the heat from your finger, and then the water disappears.
And You're just adding the air by blowing on it.
By circulating it. So now let's talk about what happens. If it's a very dry day, right? Low humidity. Your body's producing water called sweat. And what does that sweat do? It immediately
Evaporates.
And where does it get the heat to evaporate from?
Your body.
So you feel cool. So when the air is dry, you feel cool, you feel great, you feel refreshed. But now, let's put a lot of moisture in the air. So much moisture in the air, it's a high humidity day. Your body's producing sweat. And now it's trying to evaporate, but it can't because there's too much water vapor already in the air. There's nowhere for it to go. So the sweat, water, just stays on your skin. And if it's not evaporating, that means it's not using heat to evaporate. Your body gets hot, overexerted. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So that's why dry air evaporates, you feel cool. When it's muggy and moist out, your body's saying, I'm making water evaporate, but there's no room for it to go anywhere.
Your body feels like it's the air that's on you, but it's just the sweat.
It's your own sweat that's not going anywhere. Yes! Yes!
So it's the sweat makes you feel heavy.
Yeah, it's not the air, because it won't evaporate. But that will, because it's hot in here and that's gonna go away. And that's what we call a little segment here, the lightning round. John, keep the questions coming, right?
Yeah, they're great.
So weather@WNEP.com, this guy needs to go home because he's sweaty. It's the lighting. And we'll do this again. Thanks, big guy.
Sure.
Thanks, Joe and John. John, for helping out in that segment there. We appreciate it. You know, the air you can wear really gets cranked up in July and August, and we're not that far away. But it can also wreak havoc on our pets. We want your pets to stay safe. We're gonna have more on that later on in the show, but right now, quick commercial break, and then we'll be right back. And welcome back to Stormtracker 16's Cloud to Ground. You know, Anthony Bordenero, he loves his whiteboard. And we're gonna be going to that next. The topic he's tackling now, it officially starts June 1st. That's hurricane season. But just how do they come up with the predictions? Well, there's method to the madness. Anthony, take it away.
Yes, believe it or not, we are already talking about hurricane season. Let's get into this edition of Whiteboard Weather. Hurricane season starts June 1st and lasts through November 30th. So yeah, it's 6 months of watching to see if hurricanes develop, and the peak season is in September and October. But the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration sets out predictions and projections for hurricane season, and a bunch of other outlets do it as well. But let's trust the government, the big boys. And I have their forecasts and their reality over the last 6 years and see how accurate they are. But first, let's talk about their projections this year, and I want to color coordinate and put it in red. They are expecting 8 to 14 named storms this year. An average is 14. For hurricanes, they're expecting 3 to 6 hurricanes, and then 1 to 3 major hurricanes. So category 3 plus. So that's what they're expecting this year, and I know what you're thinking. That's a wide range. 8 to 14, that's like Anthony, you're saying the temperature tomorrow is going to be between 60 and 80. So I won't say it's an inexact science, but a lot of things impact how many hurricanes form. So this year, 8 to 14 would set it between Isaias and Nana. So they're expecting the names to land between these two names. Let's talk about past forecasts versus reality. And we'll start with last year, and thankfully we have a handy dandy sheet because I can't memorize all this information. So in 2025, last year, their range was 13 to 19. So expecting an above average season, likely. Reality was 13. So on the bottom end of the range. 2024, they're expecting another above average year, 17 to 25. 18. So on the bottom of that range. 2023, they're expecting 12 to 17. That year, they got 20. So above average, above average, outside the range. 2022, 14 to 21. They end up being on the bottom of that range, 14. And then finally for 2020, and if you remember that was the historic season. Actually, we're using the same names this year as we did in 2020. Some of them got retired in 2020. They're expecting 13 to 19. That year, a record amount of storms happened, and 30 happened that year. So again, 8 to 14. If we learned anything, that probably means it's not going to be 8 to 14. It's either going to be 7, 8, or it's going to be 15 to 16, because a lot of the times they've been outside the range, both below and above. I want to show you why it isn't an exact science. So this year, there are atmospheric processes going on that have been a little bit different from previous years. So what they look at is upper level winds. So hurricanes do not like wind shear. One thing they do not like is wind shear. One thing they do like is warm waters. So these are the two big parameters that outlets look at to see whether it's going to be an above or below average season. So let's start off with the warm waters. Well, right now, the waters are below average there in the tropical Atlantic right here. What about wind shear? Wind shear, that is expected to be above average, so also not good for hurricanes. So looking at the two biggest parameters are not favorable for hurricanes this year. But the problem is a lot more can change across the basin and across everything, which is why they can be uncertain. So what's driving these the higher wind shear right now is something called El Nino. There are waters out here that are warm, but they're a driver and a signal that wind shear will be increased here across the Atlantic basin. So that is called El Nino. We're in the warm phase of El Nino, and that means winds shear, upper level winds, will drive across the Central America area and increase the winds in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere and likely tear these systems apart. And again, this is a generalization, and this is not talking about the entirety of the hurricane season. This is talking about in general there's going to be more upper level winds to tear any potential systems apart. And warm waters, that can obviously change as well. Right now, we call this the main development region. These waters are cooler than normal, but that can also change throughout the beginning of the season too. So yeah, definitely a lot more to be decided than what there is on the surface right now. Also, what happens in previous years that you can't really tell is that this is the Sahara Desert. And there's dust that blows off the Sahara Desert. We call it the Saharan air layer. But this is also where hurricane waves form. Hurricane waves form off the coast of Africa. They start as weak waves and eventually get in stronger systems. That dry air could have impacts, and there's really no way to tell how dry that air is going to be at certain times of the season. Also, hurricanes don't just form here. They form here. They can form here. They can form here. They can form here. And one time it can even form off the coast of Great Britain, but that one didn't impact us. So they can form pretty much anywhere. So the lesson today was, hey, we're expecting a slightly below average season. The two main factors driving the potential hurricanes developing this year are not favorable, but a lot can change between now and then. So that's why you want to stay tuned with us as we'll update you as these systems form. We've got 6 months ahead of us for tropical season, and it's only just beginning.
Thanks, Anthony. Nice to know how NOAA gets it done. We appreciate it very much. Now, coming up in our next segment, we want to keep your pets safe. We talked about it before. The heat's coming. And did you know, not only humans, but pets can suffer from heat exhaustion? Details on this and much more as our Stormtracker 16 Cloud to Ground returns in just a moment. And welcome back to Stormtracker 16's Cloud to Ground. You know, we love showing off your pet, especially when we do the dog walking forecast and other things, telling people about them, and also helping keep them safe, which is the exact reason for this podcast report, because the summer heat is on the way, and that can be serious, even deadly for your pets. Check it out. Now, if you're a pet owner like me, you know, Rocco and Ranger, or you just love animals, cats, dogs, you have to be careful this time of the year. As we're ending May, we're going into June, and you know, the temperature gets a little hotter. I just want to show you here in the backyard. Look at where we are this afternoon. And we run a full screen during weather that says too hot to trot. Courtney will put it up there for you. And that's what we talk about. When the temperature gets above 85 degrees, it makes it very difficult for our furry friends to function on top of asphalt, especially blacktop. And also keep in mind, they don't sweat the way we do. They actually sweat through the bottoms of their feet. We asked our very own Dr. Dorton, who, just clearing the record, has been Ranger's veterinarian now for his whole life. Dr. Dorton sat down with us and talks about the difference between how dogs regulate heat and how they sweat. Check it out. So when they're panning, they're not sweating through their mouth. You're saying it's sweating through the bottoms of their paws.
It's the only place they have sweat glands that actually produce sweat on their body is their paws, the feet. They do exchange heat with the environment through panting. That is a major way that they cool themselves. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dr. Dorton. We're going to talk more about temperatures of asphalt, blacktop, concrete, and all of that. But a couple of things I want to mention before we go into those numbers. And that is, depending on the breed of your dog, the age, and the size, they can be more susceptible to things like heat exhaustion and heat stroke. We think it's only humans that suffer from that, but our dogs can suffer from that as well, so we really need to be careful. Dogs that have flat faces, like bulldogs, pugs, they don't regulate body temperature out their mouth as efficiently as other dogs do. And also, as being Ranger's owner, as you know, he's over 11 now, dogs that are older or overweight, we have to be much more careful on what the temperature is outside. And speaking of the temperature, here's a couple of graphics that I want to show you. If the temperature gets to 80 degrees, you can see how the temperature on the asphalt and concrete continue to go up. If it gets to 85 or even 90, that's when we run into critical conditions for your dogs being outside. That means the asphalt can get over 135 degrees and it can burn their paws. And their paws have what? The sweat glands in them, as we learned from Dr. Dorton. So we want to be very, very careful with that. And as Dr. Dorton also points out, depending on the surface you're walking on, some can be a lot hotter than others.
What the actual temperature of the surface of the pavement is, blacktop will get much hotter than concrete.
Okay.
Much hotter, because it will absorb more of the solar energy. And so it's more of a concern than concrete. And it depends on the temperature of the day, whether it's a full sunny day or not, if there's trees shading and so forth. So yeah, the question is, gee, is it too hot to walk my pet on the sidewalk or what have you? A simple test you can do is just put the back of your hand on the paved surface. If you can hold it there for 5 seconds, it's safe to walk your pet.
Thanks, Dr. Dorton. And he's right. When the temperature starts to get this warm, surfaces heat up and they can be really problematic for your pets. I want you to be aware of some of the warning signs, because when we talk about the warning signs, we always talk about how a dog pants. Excessive panting can be a warning sign. Also, rapid heartbeat. Does the dog feel warm? Colorations in the gums and tongue can change. That's also problematic. Your dog could be suffering from heat exhaustion or heat stroke. And finally, you want to see if it's wobbly or if the dog just lays down and doesn't want to move. Those can also be signs of that. We want you to be safe when you're walking your dogs outside, whether it be the extreme heat or the extreme cold. And if you do find yourself in a situation this summer where your dog is showing some of those symptoms and it's hot outside, well, you want to cool them off right away. Get them in the shade, get them in the air conditioning. Also, room temperature water. You don't want to put ice on them. That's not the way to cool them down. That can constrict their blood vessels and keep the heat locked into their body. Be safe, have fun, enjoy those walks. And when it does get hot like what we saw here in the backyard, then you want to walk them in grassy areas, shaded areas, dirt trails, things like that. Try and keep them off blacktop and concrete. Well, there you go. Just trying to keep your pet safe. That's what it's all about. Thank you for joining us on this week's Cloud to Ground show. The whole team here at WNEP. Hope you had fun. We hope you learned a thing or two. I know I certainly did in watching some of this. And we hope that you stay safe for not only you, but your furry friends as well. Make sure you join us next week for a brand new episode. And don't forget, you can download the WNEP Plus app. It's simple, it's free, and that's how you can check out next week's show. So until then, I'm Chief Meteorologist Kurt Aaron. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And here we go. June's on the way.